I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the book of Leviticus, chapter 5, and we're going to focus on verse 1. When someone sins in any of these ways, if he has seen, heard, or known about something that he has witnessed and did not respond to a public call to testify, he is guilty. Leviticus 5, verse 1. A Sunday school teacher asked her class, does anyone here know what we mean by a sin of omission? And a young girl raised her hand and said, aren't those the sins we should have committed, but we didn't? Not exactly. We often think of sin as something bad that we do because we are committing an act of sin. And that's called a sin of commission. I committed a sin. I did something. But today's passage tells us that sin extends to a broader context. And what it means to sin also includes the act of not doing. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron, the act of not doing. But the things that we omit, but we should have done, well, those are called sins of omission. Sins of omission are generally more difficult for a second party to even notice, for they take the humility and the disclosure on behalf of a sinner. They run deep into the hidden inner character of a person, whereas sins of commission, they affect the outer, that is the reputation. The things that you did, well, that's an outer sin. The things that you should have done but didn't do, well, then that's an inner character issue. And in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus addressed both the outer and the inner man. He chose as his topics murder, adultery, divorce, oaths, vengeance, and loving our enemies. And make no doubt about it, God is greatly concerned about outward acts of sin. Exodus 34 verse 7 said this, He will by no means leave the guilty unpunished. And consider Numbers chapter 14, verse 18. The Lord is slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but He will by no means clear the guilty. But are we fooling ourselves when we limit our sin to things that we do? Our thoughts, our attitudes, and our acts of omission testify to our guilt as well. And so it helps to remember your reputation, that is what you do, is based on the part of you that people can see. But your character, your inner self, well, that is part of what only God sees. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.